In this video, I'm going to explore a topic that might surprise even longtime fans of Middle-earth. We're going to delve into why Gandalf, one of the most powerful beings in all of Tolkien's world, showed such genuine fear and caution when it came to the Palantíri, or Seeing Stones. Most viewers of the movies might think his reluctance was simply about avoiding Sauron's gaze, but the truth runs much deeper than that. I hope this explanation sheds new light on one of the most fascinating aspects of Gandalf's character that often gets overlooked. Let's dive in. First, we need to understand what the Palantíri actually were and why they posed such a unique threat. The Seeing Stones weren't just magical communication devices like some mystical telephone system. They were ancient artifacts created by the Noldorin elves in Valinor, imbued with incredible power that went far beyond simple observation. These spheres could pierce through time and space, showing not only distant places but also glimpses of the past and potential futures. More importantly, they created a direct mental link between users, making them incredibly dangerous tools in the wrong hands. Gandalf's fear of the Palantíri stemmed from something most people don't fully grasp about his nature. While many assume he was simply being cautious about Sauron detecting him, the reality is far more complex and terrifying. The Seeing Stones operated through a form of mental domination, where the stronger will could overpower and corrupt the weaker mind. This wasn't just about hiding information or avoiding surveillance. It was about the very real possibility of being mentally enslaved. What makes this particularly significant is understanding who Gandalf truly was beneath his mortal disguise. As we discussed earlier, he belonged to the Order of the Astari, spiritual beings sent to Middle-earth in the forms of old men. However, even these powerful entities had limitations placed upon them. They were forbidden from using their full strength or revealing their true nature to the inhabitants of Middle-earth. This restriction created a vulnerability that Sauron could exploit through the Palantíri. The Dark Lord had already corrupted one of the Seeing Stones, the one held in Barad-dûr, making it his primary tool for surveillance and mental manipulation. When anyone looked into another Palantir, they risked creating a direct connection with Sauron himself. For most mortals, this contact would result in madness, despair, or complete mental domination. But for beings like Gandalf, the stakes were even higher. A successful mental assault could potentially corrupt or compromise one of the few powers actively working against the Shadow. Consider what happened to Denethor, the ruling steward of Gondor. His use of the Palantir of Minas Tirith didn't just provide him with information about the war, it gradually twisted his mind, filling him with despair and paranoia until he became a liability to his own people. Sauron didn't need to show Denethor lies to break him. He simply revealed selective truths, emphasizing the overwhelming odds against Gondor while concealing any hope or possibility of victory. For Gandalf, the risk was magnified because of his mission and knowledge. He possessed crucial information about the Ring, the plans of the Free Peoples, and the weaknesses in Sauron's defences. A mental breach could compromise everything the Fellowship hoped to accomplish. Moreover, as one of the Astari, Gandalf's corruption would deal a devastating blow to the morale and hope of all who opposed the Dark Lord. The Palantíri represented something that even divine messengers had to respect and fear. They were tools that could turn strength into weakness and wisdom into folly through the sheer force of malevolent will. The true depth of Gandalf's concern becomes even clearer when we examine what the texts reveal about the nature of will and power in Tolkien's universe. The Palantíri weren't simply windows that could be closed or ignored once opened. They created lasting connections that long could be exploited after the initial contact ended. Sauron's mastery over these stones meant that even a brief glimpse could establish a pathway for ongoing mental intrusion. This explains why Gandalf's reaction was so immediate and visceral whenever the stones appeared. In Orthanc, when Wormtongue hurled the Palantir from the tower, Gandalf's first instinct wasn't curiosity but alarm. He understood that proximity alone could be dangerous, especially for someone carrying the weight of Middle-earth's salvation on his shoulders. The wizard wasn't just protecting himself from a single moment of contact, he was safeguarding against a prolonged campaign of psychological warfare that could unfold over months or years. What many don't realise is that Gandalf's transformation from grey to white actually made him more vulnerable in certain ways. His enhanced power and direct connection to Eru Ilúvatar meant that his corruption would have catastrophic consequences far beyond personal failure. If Sauron could turn Gandalf into an agent of darkness, it wouldn't just remove a powerful ally from the board. It would actively corrupt the divine intervention meant to guide Middle-earth through its darkest hour. The stones also posed a unique threat because they operated outside the normal rules of magical engagement that Gandalf understood. Most of his powers involved inspiration, guidance, and protection, rather than direct mental combat. The Palantíri forced users into a realm where raw willpower determined the outcome, stripping away many of the subtle advantages that made the Astari effective. In this arena, Sauron held every advantage, having spent centuries perfecting his mastery over the stones and building psychological traps within their visions. Perhaps most troubling of all was the insidious nature of the corruption itself. Unlike obvious temptations or direct attacks, the Palantíri worked through gradual erosion of hope and judgment. They didn't need to show outright lies to be effective. By carefully selecting which truths to reveal and which to conceal, Sauron could manipulate even the wisest minds into despair or reckless action. For Gandalf, whose mission depended on maintaining hope and clear thinking among the Free Peoples, this represented an existential threat to everything he stood for. The wizard's caution around these ancient artifacts wasn't born from cowardice or uncertainty about his own strength. It came from a profound understanding of how power could be turned against itself, and how even the purest intentions could be corrupted through skillful manipulation. In avoiding the Palantíri, Gandalf protected not just himself but the entire cause of freedom in Middle-earth. So when we really examine Gandalf's fear of the Seeing Stones, it becomes clear that his caution went far beyond simple self-preservation. This wasn't about a wizard being afraid of getting caught or discovered. It was about understanding that some risks are too great to take, no matter how powerful you might be. The Palantíri represented a trap so perfectly designed that even divine messengers had to acknowledge their danger. Gandalf's wisdom lay not in his magical abilities or his knowledge of ancient lore, but in recognizing his own limitations and the catastrophic consequences that would follow if he fell to corruption. He understood that in the war against darkness, sometimes the greatest victory comes from knowing when not to engage. By avoiding the stones, he protected not just his own mission, but the hope and freedom of all Middle-earth. This reveals something profound about true strength. It's not always about facing every challenge head-on, or proving your power against impossible odds. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is acknowledge a threat you cannot safely overcome, and find another path forward. Gandalf's fear of the Palantíri wasn't a weakness, it was perhaps his greatest act of courage and wisdom.